Hello, and welcome to this video tutorial. I will be presenting the criteria, as outlined in the Controller's Policy A8, that Rifan's journal entry reviewers are to use, effective September 1st, 2017, to determine whether journal entries on their work lists should be approved or rejected. I will also demonstrate how to actually approve or reject a journal entry in the Rifan system. Policy A8 is designed to clarify the journal entry reviewer's role and responsibilities. It specifies what supporting documentation is required for all journal entries whose debit amounts total $500 or more, and it encourages the use of the Rifan's ability to attach short texts and electronic document files as backup to journal entries. The Office of Accounts and Control believes that adhering to this policy will provide a better audit trail for journal entry reviewers, for the Office of Accounts and Control, and for the state's auditors. It will also assist agencies in the creation of periodically recurring journal entries, especially in the case of staff turnover. Finally, it should result in reducing the volume of records in hard copy, with a consequent reduction in storage costs. As a journal entry reviewer, the first thing you should look for is to see whether the journal entry name complies with the naming conventions established by the Office of Accounts and Control. While a broad range of naming possibilities is acceptable, we do require that, in the case of a general journal entry, the first characters of the journal entry name be a capital J, followed by the last two digits of the fiscal year in which the entry is to post, followed by the three-digit number of the journal initiator's state agency. The latter part of the journal entry name is usually the three initials of the initiator's name, followed by the next number in a log which the initiator maintains. In the case of a cash receipts journal entry, the first character of the journal entry name must be a capital R, followed by the last two digits of the fiscal year in which the entry is to post, followed by the three-digit number of the journal initiator's state agency. The latter part of the journal entry name is usually the three initials of the initiator's name, followed by a four-digit number denoting the month and day on which the bank deposit was made. For example, a journal entry to record a deposit made on June 14th would have 0614 as the last part of the journal entry name. Journal entry names must be consistent with the accounting period in which they are to post. A journal entry name beginning with J17 or R17, for example, must not be used with the account period July 2017, nor should a name beginning with J18 or R18 be used with the account period June 2017. The first segment of revenue and expenditure account numbers in the lines section of the journal entry should also be consistent with the account period. This is not an issue with balance sheet accounts, the first segment of which is always 00, regardless of fiscal year. Approvers should reject any entries that show journal names or account numbers that are inconsistent with the period in which the journal entry is to post. The next thing an approver should look for is to make sure that the category selected for the journal entry is consistent with what the entry is trying to accomplish. With rare exceptions, the only journal entry categories that a state agency should use are the following: cash receipts, adjustment, allocation, and interagency billing. A journal entry using the category cash receipts must have at least one account number with 101020 as the natural account segment. A journal entry using the category interagency billing is usually initiated by the expending agency. An interagency billing journal entry may be initiated by the billing agency only if the Office of Accounts and Control has an MOU, which stands for a Memorandum of Understanding, or some similar letter of agreement on file between the two agencies involved, or if a copy of the MOU is attached to the journal entry itself. A state agency must never use the category A&C adjustment. This category is for the exclusive use of staff members of the Office of Accounts and Control. The next thing for an approver to look at is the description field of the journal entry. The description field should contain a brief but informative and meaningful description of what the journal entry is designed to accomplish. It is not enough merely to say backup on file at agency. Whenever possible, a reference should be made to a specific previously posted journal entry or other RIFANS transaction to which the current journal entry relates. If more information is needed to help an approver to understand the reason for the journal entry or to verify its accuracy and/or appropriateness, either a short text or a file should be attached to it electronically as further backup. I'll have more to say about journal entry backup requirements later in this tutorial. The next thing for an approver to look at is the account numbers and dollar amounts in the lower half of the journal entry. The account numbers and the debit and credit amounts listed with them must all make accounting sense to the reviewer. For example, a journal entry to record a cash deposit must record a debit to a cash account rather than a credit. A journal entry approver should also not approve a journal entry unless he or she knows who the journal initiator was and how to contact him or her should any questions arise. The best way for a journal entry initiator to ensure that the approver knows his or her identity is to click on the Other Information tab near the middle of the journal entry screen and enter his or her name and office phone number in the reference field on the next screen. Additionally, in the case of a cash receipt journal entry, the reference date field on this same Other Information screen should be filled in with the date the money was deposited in the bank. Now, as promised earlier, here are some important things to know about journal entry backup requirements. These requirements are effective as of September 1st, 2017, and again, they are presented on the Controller's website under Policies and Procedures number A8. First, to reiterate, the description field in the header section of a RIFANS journal entry should contain a brief but informative and meaningful description of what the journal entry is designed to accomplish. If the information in the description field provides enough verifiable information, such as a reference to a prior journal entry number or some other RIFANS document, so that an approver can be reasonably assured that the journal entry is both appropriate and accurate, then extra backup documentation is not required to be attached, although it still can be. Journal entries with a description field saying only backup on file at agency with nothing else attached should be rejected. Backup should never include a screenshot of the current journal entry itself, since this serves absolutely no purpose and actually slows down the journal entry review process. Similarly, there is no reason to attach a copy of an ADI template that was used to create a journal entry. Backup documentation may be in the form of an Excel file, a PDF file, a Word document, an email, or any other document that supports the dollar amounts and the purpose of the journal entry. Backup may also be in the form of a descriptive paragraph composed by the journal entry initiator by using the short text box. Deciding how much backup documentation to attach to a particular journal entry is a matter of judgment. Backup documentation should be sufficient in both detail and scope as to allow the approver to have a complete picture of the initiator's intent and the source of the documentation without having to request further clarification from him or her. On the other hand, the attachment of excessively detailed documentation is counterproductive. In such cases, a spreadsheet summarizing the content of this documentation, along with a short text by way of explanation, would be more helpful to a journal entry reviewer. The short text in such cases should reference where the full documentation may be accessed in case someone later needs to examine it in detail. Such a reference could be the name of a particular file on an agency's common drive, the name of a particular hard copy document, along with the name and office location of the person in whose custody it is, a link to an agency website where the supporting documentation may be found, etc. As mentioned earlier, it is no longer sufficient merely to indicate that the backup is on file at the agency. All backup documentation, whether in electronic or in hard copy form, must be retained for the period of time specified in the approved record retention schedule for the agency initiating the journal entry. Backup documentation should not contain client names, employee or client home addresses, or personal email addresses, home and personal cell phone numbers, social security numbers, birth dates, personal health histories, or any other personally identifiable information. If such information is on the documentation, the journal entry initiator should be sure to block it out before attaching the rest of the information to the journal entry. Now for the actual mechanics of approving or rejecting a journal entry. If you are a designated journal entry approver for one or more other RIFANS users, the first step in the review process is to open up your RIFANS work list by double-clicking on Work List on the Oracle navigation screen. The next screen will show you a list of all the journal entries in the system that are currently awaiting your review. If you then double-click on any item on the list, it will allow you to open up that journal entry to review. If, after reviewing a journal entry, you are satisfied that it passes all the criteria as described in this tutorial, simply X out of the journal entry screen, X out of the batch screen, click on the big blue E at the bottom of the screen, and finally, click on the Approve button in the upper right of the final screen. This will either send the journal entry to the next person in the journal approval hierarchy, or, if you happen to be the final approver for the journal, it will send it to the queue for posting. If, on the other hand, you determine that there are one or more problems with the journal entry that warrant its rejection, then you must first type the reason or reasons for the rejection in the space provided on the screen, and then click on the Reject button. You should never click on the Reject button without first providing a reason for the rejection. The entry will then flow back into the RIFANS work list of the journal entry initiator, who will then either A, correct the entry by first unreserving the funds, making the correction, re-reserving the funds, and reapproving the entry, or B, begin the process of canceling the entire journal entry. This concludes the video presentation on approving or rejecting journal entries in the RIFANS system. Thank you for taking the time to watch.